Sideliners, it's time. Back after a little bit of a hiatus, and to my left, I have a man who is wearing a Ryan Tannehill jersey, and his name is
Vincent. My name is Vinny. I am 20 years of age, and I love Pokemon.
And football.
And football, as I am a Titans fan, which I became after I won a $50 bet in 2020. Good year.
And speaking of that, we're talking about the NFL draft where the Titans have the first overall pick.
Yes. It was quite the run at the end of last season. Tank Bowlers get very ambitious. Unfortunately for you, a Giants fan, the Giants decided to win an unfortunate game at the end of the year to grant the Titans the #1 overall pick, which we are in desperate need of right now because our quarterback, the Mayo Man Levis, is not really cooking like we'd like him to, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, he is warm mayonnaise, not
You know, he's been doing a couple ad deals.
Yeah, the Hellman's ads.
Yeah, you know, it's not really my thing. But with that, we do have the #1 overall pick, which, as we've been looking throughout the draft process, we've been leaning either quarterback or edge. More specifically, Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami, or Abdul Carter, edge out of the Penn State. I personally really wanted a quarterback, and this draft class is not that sublime. We've been talking about two quarterback prospects, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, and both of them have been very underwhelming throughout the draft process, but recently Cam Ward has taken a step up. What do you think about this first overall pick?
I do believe the first overall pick should be Cam Ward just because they need a quarterback, and edge shouldn't be a top priority when you win 3 games.
You know, that's true. I think it gets very complicated because we do need an edge, we need a cornerback, we need an O-line. There's a lot of things we need.
That's what happens when you win 3 games.
You know, okay, but we were really close to winning like 6 games, so we're more of a 7-win team.
I mean, there's still a 3.
Yeah, you know, there are 3, but I think we're a pretty solid team.
My team has 4.
Yeah, and your team is probably worse off for it. But that being said, can we agree Cam Ward's probably pick #1?
Cam Ward is pick #1. Pick #2 is where things get really interesting, though.
Yes. It's a battle between potentially 2 prospects at this point. Obviously, the Browns are another quarterback-needy team with Deshaun Watson not panning out well. As of right now, he's probably going to be out for the rest of next season. There's a lot of dead cap due to his unfortunate salary. So there's a lot that we need to go over here.
And their situation right now is Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco, which isn't the best, although Joe Flacco, I think, better than people give him credit for at 42, 41.
You know, I would also argue Kenny Pickett is not that bad of a quarterback either. He got off to a bad start with the Steelers, and the Steelers have not been able to really get quarterback going ever since Big Ben got injured in 2019. So they've been trying to build back up. And with that being said, I don't really like Shedeur Sanders as a prospect. He's not bad, but he's more of a mid-first-round talent. So I would much rather, instead of doing that, we would pick up the pieces with a different prospect, such as we've said, Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. What do you think about Travis Hunter?
I like Travis Hunter. While he might not be the best receiver, I think that goes to McMillan.
Okay.
Or best corner, that goes to the cornerback out of Michigan, Will Howard. He's very interesting because he can play both at a very high level. Of course, he won the Heisman and is a very intriguing prospect. The question is whether or not the Browns will let him play both sides. The Giants will. They need the help at cornerback. But Abdul Carter, for the Browns, putting him opposite Myles Garrett, they might have like 30 sacks.
That's a great idea. I will say it also does come into concern that he comes out of Colorado with the whole Sanders controversy around how much impact Shedeur Sanders' father has on everything going on. So you definitely do have to balance out your options there. Not to mention, he did basically say in a recent interview that Travis Hunter would only play in the NFL if he could play both positions.
And I don't know if the Browns will let him. I could also see there's a decent chance the Browns pick Shedeur Sanders. I don't think that's a real possibility.
They are the Browns.
They are the Browns, and they do need a different look at quarterback. Maybe not for this year, but for the future. Do you pick him at 2 or trade back up in the first? I don't know.
The thing is, as a factory of sadness, you kind of have no choice.
Yeah.
So I don't trust them. I think they're probably going to make the wrong decision, which is why I wouldn't see any issue with Shedeur going at #2 overall. But for the sake of hoping they could be a competent franchise and not fail on every accountable level possible, I would say they're probably going to go with Abdul Carter.
And then pick 3 for the New York Giants.
Okay.
My favorite team. It would be who's ever left between Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter.
You would think that.
And you get a good...
You would think that. You might get that. Or you might end up going the more weird approach. Shedeur Sanders has been caught during Colorado games wearing New York Giants shoes. And
Yeah.
may I remind you, Daniel Jones was a quarterback in the NFL for 5 seasons.
Okay. But they signed Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson.
Okay. You think that'll stop him?
Different general manager.
Okay.
Different general manager. I think this guy has his head on his shoulders, except for when he doesn't, which is most of the time. But I think he's going to take this draft seriously, and which is why they're going to pick either Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter.
If that'll help you sleep at night.
Maybe Ashton Genty.
I actually think they might go Mason Graham.
Why do they go Mason Graham when they have Dexter Lawrence, the best
Because.
defensive lineman in the league?
Why would they go Abdul Carter if he's still available?
Pair him Brian Burns. Brian Burns, Abdul Carter is like the slightly not as good version as Myles Garrett, Abdul Carter.
All right. Well, in that case, let me talk about Mason Graham some more with pick number 4, which is going to the New England Patriots. 6 Super Bowl wins, but in the past couple of years, they have not been so hot. Last year, they drafted their franchise quarterback in Drake May, and now they're looking to give him some support. Who do you think they'd take with that pick?
I mean, whatever is available, they need a lot of stuff. Mike Vrabel is a hard-nosed guy, so like Mason Graham, the NFL mock drafts have them taking Will Campbell, the best tackle out of LSU.
You know, I know Mike Vrabel very well. He was the Titans head coach for a couple seasons. Things didn't go too well. He was heavily controversized. Don't know if that's a word. But when he was fired, people didn't really like that. And then a couple years later, he gets the Patriots, who he won a couple Super Bowls with back in the 2000s. And I think that he worked with Derrick Henry very closely. He's known to be this rough, hard-nosed tackle type of football. What are the odds they take Ashton Genty and shock the world?
I mean, Ashton Genty seems like a Mike Vrabel player. He is definitely a top 10 talent in the draft. 2,000 yards, led his team to the college football playoffs. I think, obviously, you take Ashton Genty away from Boise State. They don't make the college football playoffs. And, I mean, it's a real possibility with the Patriots because they need playmakers.
I mean, he
They've
came
got
out
their
of the
quarterback.
MAC conference, so do you think that will affect him?
Came out of the Mountain West.
Mountain West, damn.
Yeah, get it
Catching
right.
me on my stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, he brought a Mountain West team to the college football playoffs.
Yeah.
They need everything. They got their receiver, Stephon Diggs,
All right.
in the free agency, and they could add Ashton Genty. They got their quarterback last year.
I understand that. I think we should move on to the final pick in this that we're going to talk about, which would be the Jacksonville Jaguars. What do you think about them?
They need everything.
Let's talk about
Other
where they are
than-
as a franchise.
They on paper they should always be better than they are. I
Every-
feel like they underperform. They've got a new head coach. They've got a new general manager.
Okay.
They've got their guy at quarterback, and they've got their guy at receiver, and they might have their guy at edge.
You would think. But the Jacksonville Jaguars are another one of those franchises that are always extremely poverty, really bad. I mean, Plaxico Burress, was he the guy who shot himself in the foot?
That was a giant.
Yeah. And I'm telling
yeah.
you, that's what the Jacksonville Jaguars are as a franchise.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, I think they might make a pick. Here, they could take Will Campbell, Mason Graham, who's ever on the board, or they could trade back, which is what I think they might end up doing.
Think they're going to trade back?
I think they might trade back, and I think someone's needy enough, someone might trade up for Shedeur Sanders. What do you think about that?
Who's trading up, though?
The Saints.
The Saints. The Steelers.
Do you even know if Aaron Rodgers is going to go to the Steelers?
No, Aaron Rodgers doesn't know what he's going to do.
Exactly. And if you want someone who you can develop, raw prospect, but develop behind a potential Aaron Rodgers while he's sitting here basically strong-arming the Steelers for everything he's worth, you might as well draft Shedeur Sanders, but they have a late pick. So what are the odds they go from here all the way up to pick number 5 in the draft and draft what they are hoping is going to be the heir to Ben Roethlisberger, which unfortunately could not have been Kenny Pickett?
That's a real possibility. I didn't think of that. I've always thought about the Jaguars sitting flat because they need as much talent as possible. But trade back, get a couple picks, go there. The NFL has them taking Tyler Warren, the tight end.
That would
out
be a
of
reach.
Penn State.
But at like pick 10, maybe not so bad. Maybe
If
they trade
Ashton
back and
Genty
trade up.
doesn't go, pick 4.
You think he goes pick 5?
Pick 5 to the Jags.
Who's their running back again?
Um,
Travis Etienne, right?
Yes.
He's been a massive underperformer, unfortunately, so it would be good for them to find
you
someone
add
who can be
an
a lot more
extreme
consistent.
playmaker and a second option for Trevor Lawrence.
True.
He needs as much help as he can get. They're trying to get back to the playoffs.
Not to mention, dual backfields have become a lot more popular in recent memory. As you know, Sonic and Knuckles with the Detroit
A
Lions.
little bit of Thunder and Lightning,
Yep.
ETN, Genty.
That's what I was saying. You could do something similar to what Jahmyr Gibbs has been able to do along with David Montgomery for the Detroit Lions, who were just 14-3 this past year.
With a much better supporting cast. But the
there's a
Jaguars
lot
can
that you
get
could
there
do.
if they get this
There
pick
is a
right.
lot you could do. And that's what I'm saying. So the Jaguars have a lot to work with, and I think that definitely rounds out our talks on the first 5 picks. What do you have to say?
I believe that's everything we have to talk about, and I believe we are also out of time. So thank you, everyone, for watching this episode of Sideliners. And that is all.
Thank you.
Thank
Stay
you.
fast.